Today on Locked On Canadiens, John Cooper was right, I was wrong, and I've never been happier to admit it.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day every day. As you know, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every day. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the extremely smug Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by my apparently equally delighted co-host, Ian Weber, also known as Maybe It's Ian. Ian, Canada won the Four Nations Faceoff.
They did. And listeners of this show, especially this last week or so, will know that I kept finding myself not being able to really cheer for one side or the other in this rivalry. For whatever reason, it was the first time in my life where I actually kind of thought about it. Due to the events that took place around this game, by the time the puck dropped, I knew exactly who I was rooting for. And that was one of, if not the greatest hockey games of all time.
It was really good.
Start to finish, incredible hockey. Again, the NHL deserves props for putting this tournament on. They also deserve finger wagging for not doing this for 10 years. Yeah. 10 years. It's too long. Connor McDavid scored an overtime winning goal in an Olympic tournament in the championship, and we had to wait 10 years to see it. That's wild, but we're not going to do that. The negativity is gone. We have some crow to eat on this as well.
Yeah,
so absolutely. We better get into that.
The first thing I'm going to say is I'm not going to apologize to Jordan Binnington for everything because I don't like him for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, facts.
But I take back what I said about revoking his citizenship before the Olympics. I take that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the softy, he gave up one really soft goal in this game where it's like he kicked a rebound out into the slot and then moved a mile out of position, or maybe I should say a kilometer out of position in this instance. And then in overtime, he locked in, man. He there was a sequence where it felt like watching Carey Price in overtime against the Leafs.
Right.
Where it was just the Leafs getting and I mean, one of those chances was Austin Matthews, probably in both of those games. One was definitely in this last one on Thursday night. And it was just shot after shot after shot after shot. He just kept making incredible saves. And it's so frustrating because if he can just get the banana goals out of his system, that's a perfectly useful goaltender. And that's the frustrating part is the 10 bell saves are there. It's the mental lapses when the puck rolls between his legs from the blue line. That's the frustration there. But he locked in. We have to hand it to him. We have to hand it to him.
I will say that he gave me maybe an average of 3 heart attacks a period just by he just plays so wide and far out of his net, and he doesn't look agile and fast enough to get back into position. And listen, they put up the goalie stats before the game, right? It was like Connor Hellebuck was almost perfect, and then Jordan Binnington was an 8.82 or something, right? And then Ian, you found some stats like the Connor Hellebuck effects at the stats.
At the end of the second period, the expected goals were 2.68 for 2.68 for Canada and 1.06, and the score was 2-2. Yeah. It's well, that's it, right? Binnington spotted them a goal, and Canada is shooting a little bit under their expectation. They ended up with 3. I did say 4-2 Canada. I was close. I'm gonna give that pretty close there. But I mean, Hellebuck. None of the goals Hellebuck gave up were bad goals. Yeah. There was the wrist shot from the point from McKinnon, who was your tournament MVP, very well deserved. He was incredible. Again, shouldn't have gone 10 years having to see him play in a Team Canada jersey. I'll die mad about it, but we're happy tonight. And then the Sam Bennett goal was just, again, another guy we have to eat crow on. Mitch Marner, holy cow, 2 assists. That one was incredible.
Yeah,
he beats him up top, and then the McDavid goal. They leave. The Americans, there was a bold strategy of leaving the greatest player in the league right now just wide open in front of the slot. He's not going to, even as bad as he played in that game, he's not missing that.
After dominating the entire overtime, right?
Yeah.
The USA dominated the entire overtime, and then that happened, right?
Yeah.
I want to say there were maybe 2 dangerous Canada shots in that overtime, and one of them was the one that went in, right? That's what I remember. I very much remember the dangerous USA shots and Jordan Binnington coming in clutch. All right. There were a couple things that obviously Shea Theodore being injured, but I was like, Colton Parayko was fantastic, right? I was astounded at just how good he was, and just like in general, like you take the best USA players and the best Canada players, you are putting together mostly the best players in the world, like the best hockey players in the world. Yeah, give or take a couple guys, right?
Yeah.
So it blew my mind just how good that game was. And I wish every NHL game could be like that.
Yeah, they can't. We have to go back to watching Christian Dvorak on Saturday night. I don't mean to pick on him, but he's like the complete antithesis to whatever this tournament was, right? Which is
we're going to talk about
that
in the second segment.
Yeah, I know. We have to go from talking about the absolute insanity that was this tournament, especially the last game, and then kind of grind to a screeching halt to talk about Habs Sens in February. Like, it's just, man, that's a tough transition. It's going to be tough, but stick with us. I'm sure we'll make it interesting for you.
We're going to try. We're always here for you listeners, but just like there's so many things that I did want to point out about that game. And like the USA, right? I thought in the third period, they did a really good job of going back to that grinding, stifling defense. Like they're very strong defensively. Their goaltending is also like really strong. So I thought in the third period, I found them to be the most frustrating. In the overtime, I found them to be the most dangerous. But Canada overall had a consistency throughout the game. Like just watching that, if I weren't cheering for Team Canada, like if I were a neutral fan, I feel like I would have been able to truly appreciate what they brought, right? Yeah. And in particular, like you could tell who's injured and who's not, right? Like Austin Matthews didn't play that much. Sidney Crosby didn't play that much. They didn't seem to be factors, right? But
Matthew Tkachuk
matter. Yeah,
Matthew Tkachuk didn't play in the third period. I think he had one shift or two shifts in the second. Like that's a huge loss for that team.
Before the tournament, right?
He was injured during the tournament. I forget what game it was. It wasn't the Finland game, the last game of the Sweden game, the last game of the tournament for the Americans. It was the one before that. Where he was kind of just
he got injured in that fight?
No, it wasn't the fight. It was at some other point in that hockey game he ended up getting banged up because there was a lot like that was what made that Canada loss so like annoying, especially at the time because they didn't have the emotional heartbeat of Matthew Tkachuk. Like the Tkachuk brothers, for what it's worth, they had a legitimately great tournament, the two of them. And they're going to be the leaders for that American team for the next however long they play. Because Matthews was wearing the captaincy. Yeah, right. No, he wasn't. That's the Tkachuk's team. Yeah. And good on them. They played an incredible tournament. I think Brady was not feeling well and maybe a little banged up as well. So we'll see how that bodes for him on Saturday. There's your tie into Habs Sens on Saturday night in Ottawa. But yeah, I thought that this was a really big. I feel like the game has now been handed over to the next generation. That's what it feels like, right? Like McDavid scoring this overtime goal is very reminiscent of 2010 Crosby scoring his overtime goal. I know the Olympics and Four Nations aren't equals, but they're moments of a similar magnitude. And it shows you just how far the game has come in the 15 years since that Crosby goal, right? Yeah. Like that we've got guys in this like Crosby and I think Doughty are the only two on Team Canada who played in that last tournament, in that Vancouver tournament.
Very much so.
Yeah. I mean, so who are you taking off of this team for the Olympics? Like, is there anybody you're looking at going like, hey, you probably shouldn't be there?
Yeah, they're like a couple of the ringers, right? Hagel, Harley, right?
I'd take Marchand off. I don't think he had a very good tournament.
No, I don't think he's past his prime, right?
I had a thought the speed of that tournament made him look like Brendan Gallagher, and I didn't mean that as disrespect to Brendan Gallagher, but like he's not very fleet of foot at this point of his career. He had a breakaway, and the guy just caught him. Yeah, exactly. We used to compare them as like contemporaries, that they were peers, and really they're not. We know that now. But yeah, I do think this team will look fairly similar going into the Olympics.
Very similar, yeah. I don't know if I take Mark Stone off because I feel like there's other guys like Mark Stone that don't make me want to punch them in the face. That's part of it. like there's a couple guys, like the ringers, like don't take so many of the Tampa Bay Lightning just because John Cooper's familiar with them. I know they haven't like chosen the coach or whatever, right? But like, and this is not me saying that, you know, Nick Suzuki deserves to go. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that you have so many good players in Canada. You don't need role players. Just take whoever's the best at that moment in time, right? And just rank them in order. And then, like, you know, take a bunch of people in case some of them get injured. But just take the best, like the best defenseman, the best. You do not need a role player. You do not need Tom Wilson unless he's performing like he did this year. You don't need stuff like that. So, like, I just want them to get that part out, because for the most part, when you were watching this game, who was captivating you? Who was drawing your attention? Who was like making you hold your breath, giving you a heart attack? The true stars, right?
And Jacob Slavin. I mean, for the US, Jacob Slavin was incredible. Like that, I'm so stoked that this was his coming out party. That was really cool to watch him just kind of. They kept calling on ESPN. They kept calling him the eraser. I was like, yeah, it kind of is. Like every time there was something bad happening in front of him, he made an incredible play.
Yeah. That honestly, it was true, and it's like I never would have expected that from Jacob Slavin, right? Like I've been watching him for a few years. That's not what I expected from him. So you know what? Fantastic. Good luck. Good for you. But we have to like go away from this incredible hockey and then talk about Habs Sens. And that's coming up in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three-pointer, I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we lived a couple of weeks of amazing hockey, really fun. You know, every game we watched was fun and entertaining. None of them were a dud. And now we have to watch the Montreal Canadiens. It's not going to be the same. Not only that, the first game that the Montreal Canadiens are playing is against the Ottawa Senators after this break.
Yeah.
So what are our expectations for this game?
Well, you know, it really depends on who's playing in it, right? Like, is Brady Tkachuk okay enough to come back and play for the Sens in 2 days, right? Like, he has to leave Boston, go home to Ottawa, and play a game Saturday. Is he going to play? I don't know. You know, Sam Montembeault, I mean, he hasn't been playing, but is he going to get the start after just sitting around for 2 weeks, right? Like, I don't know the answer there either.
I think yes. I think
Sam Montembeault starts?
Sam Montembeault plays. Yes, he starts. I don't think that Brady Tkachuk plays, and I think it turns into like this really annoying narrative about how he doesn't care about his job in the Ottawa Senators organization. He's going to get run out of town.
Yeah, talking about just caring, I want to go back to Four Nations just for a brief moment. If you watched the trophy ceremony when they were all passing the trophy around, those guys could not care any less about that trophy. They did not. They were like, woo, holding it above their head for like a split second. And I was like, it was kind of, I kind of thought that was nice to see, actually, because the game meant more than the hardware, right? Yes. The effort that they gave on the ice mattered more than whatever they put around their necks or whatever they held above them. I thought that was kind of interesting, since you mentioned Brady Tkachuk not caring about playing for the Ottawa Senators, which we don't know is not true. You know, I'm just needling Sens fans. But
we're asking questions. That's all we're doing right now.
Yeah, we're just asking the questions. We're doing our own research, Laura. That's what we're doing.
I saw it on Facebook.
Yeah. All right, we should set up this Sens game. Ottawa comes into this game with a record of 29, 23, and 4, 62 points. They're currently sitting in the first wildcard spot, which, funny enough, right now would, and I'm just confirming this is true quickly, yes, it would set them up for a Tkachuk battle. It would be the Kentucky Bowl. They would play the Florida Panthers in the first round. They're probably not going
together.
Yeah. That would be really fun to watch those two try to play against each other for 7 games. That'd be incredible.
Really funny.
This is the second time this season Montreal and Ottawa have played. The last time was the third game of the regular season back on October 12th. Montreal beat Ottawa 4-1 at the Bell Center. Emil Heineman had a goal. Cole Caulfield had 2. Alex Newhook added 1. And Montreal, pretty much that game was never really close. I don't think that will be the what we see in this game against Ottawa on Saturday. These teams are in very different places at this point. Ottawa is, I wouldn't say a favorite to make the playoffs in one of those 2 wildcard spots, but there's certainly a front runner at this point.
Yes.
They've got the high ground, so to speak, on the other teams, and it just seems like they're playing a more complete game for the first time in a while. They're having a hard time scoring right now, from what I understand, but I mean, it's the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah.
He was injured for multiple periods.
Yes.
And he really was the difference in the beginning of the season, right? Like he gave them that shot in the arm. So, I'm thinking Ottawa kind of has the edge here also because the Canadiens were just spiraling. And I haven't seen any big changes yet. This game will be the test to see if they're coming back from that break with different mindset, different approaches, different energy, potential to actually win some games maybe before the end of the season. I'd really like that.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of attitude the Canadiens come back with. Is it, we want to reestablish our game. We don't care that people think we've fallen out of the mix. We're going to play our hardest until the end of the year. Do they come back and they look rusty and they look dejected and they look like they know their season is over? I really hope that's not the case, but that's with a young team like this, I'm kind of expecting that sort of start to the back, later third of this season. But again, I think there's 7 games between now and the trade deadline. It might be some of the last times we see some of these guys play for the Montreal Canadiens. Like Jake Evans is, likely on his way out. What does the team look like around him? How does he look knowing that this is all going through his head for the next little while? I find it so funny. I wish the Canadiens would hold the Fan Fest, the skills competition earlier in the season when players don't have to worry about trade rumors, but that's on Sunday, by the way, at the Bell Center. They're leaving Ottawa, coming home and doing that skills competition. And they might trade Jake Evans at some point in between now and then.
Yes. I think, for me, it's a little bit of hopefully they were watching this, right? Hopefully they were invested in watching this because watching players play at their best, right? Like I'm really hoping that really like inject some energy into them because we know they're immature. We've talked about it. A lot of the problems that we've seen with their execution over the course of the season is due to that lack of maturity, right? I just hope that they look at this and they go, someday we're going to be a contending team. We're going to be really good. We're going to be one of the best, right? So I really hope it gives them a little bit of inspiration. I also just think that, we talked about Cole Caulfield being a little bit down on himself and then passing instead of shooting, that kind of stuff. I'm hoping a little bit of that goes away. I'm hoping that with Nick Suzuki having mental rest, he comes back and he's back to being the dependable, reliable, good player on this team where we never had to worry about him, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And look, the other way that the Canadiens can continue their season, especially in a game against a team like Ottawa, who's not firmly in the playoffs, is can you play spoiler? Can you spoil these guys, their run to getting into the playoffs? Ottawa is not in that different of a position as the Montreal Canadiens in that they were a rebuilding team. Now they are trying to take that next step. Can you stop them from taking that next step? Because that team, Ottawa, is going to come back in a different gear than the Montreal Canadiens. They're going to be coming into that game knowing it's a stretch run between now and the playoffs. We want to be there. So can Montreal match that intensity? Can they match that environment, especially going on the road in Ottawa? I would imagine the building's going to be pretty loud for a Saturday night after Canada wins that Four Nations tournament. I wonder if Sam Montembeault gets a nice ovation from the crowd, knowing that he just won it for Team Canada. I wonder what they say about Brady Tkachuk, that he played for the States. Also, if the Americans won with goals from Brady Tkachuk and Sanderson, and they have Matthew Tkachuk, how mad is the entire country at the Ottawa Senators? Just like livid, right? So mad.
Yeah. What I really wanted, honestly, was for all of the Team USA goals to come from players who play in Canada.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that would complicate their life so much when they got back.
Yeah, I was thinking too. I'm like, well, Kyle Connor, he didn't play, but Kyle Connor, oh, Austin Matthews plays for the Leafs. Oh, the best goalie in the world is from the Jets. Like, you look up and down that team and you realize that, like, the way that we view how, like, what country players are from is very based on like the team that they play for, but that's not true. And like, it's like the Bruins fans always cheering USA,
right? And tonight
like,
was the first time it was actually fitting.
Yeah, exactly. And they had to boo Brad Marchand in the process. It's wild.
So
International tournaments on NHL buildings and fan bases is, we all get very confused.
It's really funny. It was really, really funny. I think for me, the most hilarious part, hilarious/amazing, was at the end when they sang they played the Canadian anthem and you watch the Canadian flag go up in the TD Garden. Like, that to me was
was a shot.
That was good.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
That was really
the
funny.
vibes from this are gonna last forever. I'm
so happy right now.
Yeah,
Imagine
we just tried to do
lost.
a Habs Sens preview and we ended up talking about Four Nations again because we're just buzzing.
Yes. This episode, by the way, is starting, like, we started recording it at like midnight. So that's why we're crazy. All right. I think it is time to move on to the mailbag. And we're going to do that right up next. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Olympics, and now the Four Nations. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. All right. We have our Friday mailbag, even though this is a crazy, Four Nations recap / Habs Sens preview. It's Friday, so we still have time for our mailbag. We always have time for you, and we want to thank you all, as always, for sending us your questions. Ian, what do we have in the mailbag today?
Well, we have a lot of our friends returning to us, as we often do in our mailbag, and I always love seeing this, the community keep coming back. It's just super fun, the relationship that we're building with these. And I'll start with one from Kyle Roberts, because it starts, "Hi Ian, Laura, Jordan, Nicholas, and Scott." So there's like just a whole team here being referenced. And he says about Scott, "Assuming you're still a regular listener." I bet Matt was listening today. If you were to make a non-hockey trade, who would you be picking from any sport to come and play for the Montreal Canadiens? For this exercise, we're going to assume that the talent and skill were transferred to the NHL. I'd pray to the ghost of the forum that JJ Watt is a right shot defenseman, and trade Savard and a third for him, and also trade Jake Evans, Dvorak, and Calgary for LeBron James to play center. What are some non-hockey trades that you would want to make?
That's a really fun question.
I like it too, because it pokes fun at the idea of a hockey trade that we keep hearing all the time. They're all hockey trades. These are hockey players. I don't know if you guys know this.
Mm-hmm.
They're all hockey players in the NHL. It's pretty crazy.
So I was gonna say Steph Curry.
Ooh.
Can we get, okay, so this is, he said another sport, right? Can we get like Marie-Philippe Poulain and Laura Stacey and also Hillary Knight?
Let's just rebuild the Le Canadien. Let's just rebuild that. That's the move.
Yes.
I'll go trade for Saquon Barkley out of Philadelphia. That dude rules. I've been watching it just in my head, just thinking about earlier on this season when he did a backward spinning hurdle over a guy. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life, and I've thought that he could dominate in other sports if he got the chance. If we could teach him to skate, assuming the question does say assuming all of the skills transfer to the NHL. So Saquon Barkley, he's going to the net. No one's stopping him. He's burying the puck. I would want Saquon Barkley really bad.
That's good.
All right. Back to another heavy hitter. Claude Sauvé asks, I was hoping to get your thoughts about roster construction. I'm a bit of a dinosaur, so I've been beating this drum for some time. So long, in fact, that my first drum was made out of animal skin. It's a great line. A while ago, you were speaking about the Habs not being a small team. Statistically speaking, you are right, but with respect to personnel, they are itty-bitty. The current roster has very few players on the team that have size and use it effectively. Here's where you'll think I went the way of the dodo. Going forward, I think you could get more bang for your buck and construct a more competitive roster by adding a few more Xhekais and Heinemans rather than focusing solely on Zegras and Petterssons of the world. In keeping with the theme of this email, I don't mean knuckle draggers. I mean players who can skate, hit, and are a little bit nasty. They don't have to be 6'4", 220, but they have to see themselves that way. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. The Panthers proved that. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. To make a good stew, you need some beef to complement the sweet peas. That's a fantastic line, by the way. I was reading these questions before the show, and that's been resonating with me, especially after watching the way Team USA wanted to play hockey. Like their theme was the Kachucks just barreling you over when they could. Obviously, Matthew was, banged up, but Brady was. Brady was going after Drew Doughty every time he got the chance to. He put him into the end boards like 3 times.
Drew Doughty's bigger than him.
Yeah. So I get it, right? Like I get the mentality of like, it's nice to have those big players. The problem is that there are not a lot of big players that play like Brady Tkachuk, where you can trust them to be a strong forechecking, agitating, pain in the butt player, and also like score 70 points. Those players don't like exist.
It's usually one or the other.
Yeah, and you think you get them with like Michael McCarron, or when the Bruins won the cup, and the next year the Leafs took like Tyler Biggs because it completely broke their minds. I don't disagree with the premise that bigger players are effective in the NHL. Of course they are. Where I kind of draw the line is they have to also have the soft skills. That's why they like a guy like Yuri Slafkovsky. That's why they like a guy like David Reinbacher, who's big but also has the soft skills.
Yeah.
So those guys don't just fall out of trees, man. Like that's my whole thing is I wish we could have more of them, but they're tough to find.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do one more. Nathaniel Hers on Blue Sky asks, if you were to trade one of Doc, Laine, or Newhook in the offseason, who do you trade? Why do you trade them? And what do you hope to get in return? It's a good question. Do you have one that jumps off the page to you?
The logical thing would say Laine because he only has 1 year left on his contract. I think Kirby Doc.
Yeah, I was also leaning Doc just because I think he's still cheap, and I think I think there's a team out there that could think that he still has potential he hasn't reached. Yeah. And you could trick them into taking a guy, and maybe Doc has that potential. I'm not saying he doesn't, but
I think he does actually. I think he does. I think he's just not finding it here.
Right, exactly. And how long do the Canadiens want to play that game of well, if we wait 1 more year, he's gonna hit, then he's really gonna start popping off. Like they can't afford to do that forever.
Yeah,
so like that's why I lean Doc in that situation as well, and I also don't lean Newhook here because I don't know that there's much of value, right? Like, and I like Alex Newhook, but he projects as like a third line energy forward.
You're not going to get 2 picks for him again.
No, you're not getting a first and a second. Exactly. That's what I was in mind thinking. Like your return on investment with Alex Newhook is not good enough to be able to move him, and you can use him as an effective player. I would not move him.
Absolutely. All right. It is very, very late. Shall we get to our trivia?
Yes. Yesterday's question was, how many times has a Montreal Canadien won the Calder Trophy? Do you have the answer, Laura?
I know the answer is 6, but I didn't get it myself. I stole it from the listeners.
Yes. Paul P14 on YouTube had it first again, as did Good Sport, getting in there with the answer. Yeah, the answer is 6. Johnny Quilty in 41, Jeffrey in 52, Backstrom in 59, Russo in 62, LaPerriere in 64, and Dryden was the last one for the Canadiens to win the Calder Trophy in 72, which he won, after winning a Stanley Cup and a Conn Smythe, which is hilarious. Just the funniest trophy of all time is the Calder, because the rules are made up and nothing matters when it comes to that trophy.
So
Artemi Panarin comes over from Russia and he's 25, and they're like, "Here's the Calder." It doesn't really work that way. All right, today's question is a tap-in. Who won the Four Nations Faceoff? We're just gonna go it for the trivia this time. I think we know.
I'm gonna give you a hint.
Yeah.
The hint is it was not USA.
Correct.
That's the hint.
If you have the answer, just somehow. I mean, it's a tough question. If you have the answer and you just want to share it with the world and show us how smart you are, put it in the comments down below. Get as excited as you can. Sound off in the comments. We're giving you a tap in for this one because the vibes are just so good after a game like that.
Yes, absolutely. And the Canadiens and the NHL as a whole are back. So we will be back to covering them 5 days a week, starting Monday. So make sure you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Tell your friends, hit like, all of that kind of stuff. Also, you can find us all over social media. We are on TikTok as Locked On Canadiens. We are on Instagram as Locked On Canadiens. You can find us on Gmail at Locked On Canadiens. And you can also find us on the Blue Sky at Locked On Canadiens. You'll find me at The Active Stick. You'll find my co-host at Maybe It's Ian. Canada won. The U.S. did not. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you all on Monday.